Daily Red Devil. Lots and lots to discuss on the show this morning. But before we get into that, please do me a small favour. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are watching for the first time today. Very close to hitting 50,000 subscribers, so go and do that right now. And be sure to drop a like on the video. Let's try and see 500 likes on this morning's episode. Right, so much to get into on the show today. Obviously, we haven't done a video since yesterday's game against Brighton, so we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about a potential deal for Cherki. £19 million is his valuation. We'll be talking about Rashford. Here we go, incoming. Medical booked. Lots and lots to get into. But before we do that, I want to know your thoughts. How are you feeling at the moment as a Manchester United fan? Obviously, yesterday we lost 3-1 to Brighton. It doesn't look good at the moment, does it? Ruben Amorim came out after the game saying that this is the worst Manchester United side in history. That's crazy. That's a crazy, crazy statement. I don't know if it is, to be honest, because obviously Man United have been relegated before. Although arguably we are, pretty close to the relegation zone at the moment. So, I mean, if we carry on the way we're going, we could get relegated. And I know people are going to be like, oh, don't be ridiculous. But I think we've got 11 points in the last 11 games. So if we carry on with this form, right, that means, say we get another 11 points from the next 11 games, that would mean we'd be on 37 points having played 33 games. I think it's usually 40 points to stay up, isn't it? So we'd be close. We'd be in the conversation, definitely. We are in relegation form at the moment. We're not that far off the relegation zone. We're 10 points off. It's still a pretty substantial gap between us and the bottom. But if you think that Everton are currently 16th and they're on 20 points and we're on 26 points, so we're only like 6 points away from Everton, which is crazy. Obviously, Tottenham are doing badly as well. In relation to yesterday's game, I thought it was a pretty average game. Brighton were obviously the better side, but I don't think they were massively better. I think until their second goal, there'd only been one shot on target for both teams, which is, let's be honest, a bit of a joke for Man United at home to only be able to achieve one shot on target, and that was a penalty. That's not good enough. I'm sorry. I don't care whether Ruben Amorim doesn't have the right players for his setup and all the rest of it. Like, to only achieve one shot on target and that being a penalty, that's not good enough. It's not, is it? There are some people in the fan base who are starting to turn on Ruben Amorim. I don't know. I think I'm going to be honest here, right? This is how I see it, and this is my own personal opinion. Maybe you disagree with me. I think Man United fan base as a whole have taken a liking to Ruben Amorim because of how honest he is, because of how he effectively is communicating what the Man United fan base have been feeling for a long time about these players. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Erik ten Hag, we'd lose at home to Bournemouth and he'd say, oh, it's all part of the process, trust the process. And it used to drive us crazy because we'd be sat there saying, how can you keep saying this word process? And after we lose badly against an average team, Whereas Ruben Amorim is, even when we win, he's like, we didn't play well today. I'm not happy with the performance. And I like that. And I think that's what's earned him a lot of points with the Man United fan base. And I think a lot of Man United fans will stick with Ruben Amorim because he almost feels like he's one of us. He sees it for how it is and he says it for how it is. He doesn't beat around the bush. He doesn't, he doesn't taint it. He just says it. But I will say this. I think if he wasn't like that, if he was like Erik ten Hag was and saying, oh, it's all part of the process, trust the process, that type of narrative, I think there would be a lot of people seriously concerned at the moment. I know you can say, oh, it's the players, it's the formation. I agree with all of that, of course, 100% I do. But at the end of the day, football is a results business. And we are at the moment, we've got 11 points from 11 games. I mean, that's awful, absolutely awful. It's relegation form. Even if we started to go on a bit of a run, right? Even to get into the top half of the table, which is laughable, right? That I'm speaking about this. We're 7 points off being in the top half of the table. So when you think of it like that, right, that would mean us having to win like 3 games in a row and a team in the top half of the table having to lose 3 games in a row for us to actually be able to get into that top half, which is crazy, So, and realistically, when you look at the fixtures that we've got coming up, it doesn't really get any easier for Man United. The next 2 Premier League games are Fulham away, who are doing really well. They're in the top half of the table. Can't see us beating them. Then you've got Crystal Palace at home. Again, I think we'll struggle there. Then you've got Tottenham away. I mean, maybe they'll have a new manager by then. New manager bounce. They'll beat us, Tottenham will. Everton away. Everton have just beaten Tottenham. Everton are a decent side. Away from home as well. That'll be hard. Like the next 4 or 5 Premier League games, Fulham away, Tottenham away, Everton away, and Crystal Palace at home. I could see us losing 3 of those 4 games easily, maybe more. And then even after that, if you want to look past that, it's like we've then got Arsenal, Man City, Nottingham Forest, and Newcastle as the next 4 games. So, I don't know. Realistically, the Premier League is over for us. If I was Ruben Amorim, I know you can't ever do this as a Man United manager, but I would just literally be now trying youth players and rotating the squad, trying different things, because at this point it is just a training exercise. You know, we're not going to get top 4. We just simply aren't. I mean, how many points are we off top 4 now? So Man City are in 4th at the moment on 38 points. So we're 12 points off top 4 with 16 games left to go. It's not going to happen. You know, the top 4 this year is so competitive. You've got Bournemouth, Chelsea, Newcastle all on 37 points. And you've got Newcastle and Man City both on 38 points and Aston Villa on 36 points. So between 8th and 4th, there is only 2 points difference. But then between 8th and 13th, which is where we are, there's 9 points difference. Do you see what I mean? So it's really close in between 4th and 8th spot. But between 8th and where we are, there's a massive gap. So we're not going to catch up. But I'd love to know how you're all feeling at the moment. Like, is this on Amorim? Is this on INEOS? Like, what do you think? I still think it's... I still think that we have to blame the ownership here. I think the fact of the matter is this. The owners gave Erik ten Hag a new contract. That was probably a mistake, right? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. They then gave him £200 million to spend in the summer. And then a month later, they sack him. And I remember Ruben Amorim, after he joined Manchester United, in his first press conference, he said that he wanted to come in the summer. And INEOS wouldn't let him. INEOS said that if you don't come now, we're going to get another manager. And that was probably the mistake. What should have happened, realistically, I don't know, it's really difficult, actually. I'm saying these words out loud and then I'm thinking about it. And maybe this season could end up being a good thing. And you're probably thinking, what the hell are you talking about? But I was going to say maybe they should have kept Ten Hag till the summer and then had Ruben Amorim as the manager from the day the season finished. But then at the same time, I think that would have just sugarcoated it, wouldn't it? Whereas we can see here and now how bad this squad is. We can see here and now how we've wasted over £1 billion in transfer fees in the last decade. You know, spending 80 million on Maguire, spending 80 million on Sancho, spending 85 million on Anthony, 70 million on Casemiro. The list goes on and on and on and on of money we've wasted on average players. And as long as Ruben Amorim rides this storm, and as long as he gets till the end of the season, which I'm 100% in Ruben Amorim's corner, right? I'm not going to turn on Ruben Amorim. I didn't even turn on Erik ten Hag, to be honest. I just think that I've said it to you many, many times before that it's not the manager's fault here. You know, there are some people though blaming Ruben Amorim already, saying that it's his fault. Blah blah blah. You know, what was I saying? Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the fact that INEOS gave Erik ten Hag a new contract, gave him £200 million to spend, then sacked him, and then pretty much forced Ruben Amorim to become the manager in the middle of a season when he didn't want to, you can see why we're in the position we are. But on the flip side of that, maybe it's actually a good thing that we're in the position we are. But obviously at this moment in time, it's not a good thing. It's painful, it's horrible, and I hate it. But if this summer we have the biggest rebuild ever and we get rid of, 10, 15 players, then maybe the suffering will be worth the reward. The reward will be worth the suffering. But that's all if buts and maybes, Maybe we get to the summer, Casemiro stays, Anthony stays, Rashford's still here, Sancho comes back, I don't know, Johnny Evans gets a new contract, Onana, do you know what I mean? Like the list goes on and on of players that need to be sold. And I've said to you before, across our whole team, the only people that I would say are probably unsellable for me is probably Ahmad, and that's probably it. If someone offers me 200 million for Mainu, I'd take it. If someone offers 200 million for whoever else, I like Mainu, I like Højlund. I like Yoro. I like, some of these younger players. I like Toby Collier. And, you can see that we do have a bit of a foundation here to build on. But at the moment, I don't think any player is unsellable. So the point I'm trying to make here is, hopefully, we get rid of some players. But, January so far has been pretty inactive. We've still got all of these players here. We'll talk about Rashford in a minute. We'll talk about potential incomings. Obviously, Anthony's about to leave. Yeah. The fact of the matter is this. INEOS need to put money forward. They need to invest. They need to get rid of players. They need to tear up contracts if they have to. They need to pay players off. People like Luke Shaw, who haven't played football for years, just say, you know what, we'll give you half of your salary to leave. Goodbye. Get rid of him. Even if we don't get a transfer fee. We need to start making these massive decisions. The same with the goalkeeper. Literally, right? You could have any manager in world football, and you're never going to win anything with Onana as your goalkeeper. I know we won the FA Cup last season. Okay, fine. But I mean more of in a Premier League format. The FA Cup, it's 6 or 7 games. You might have one lucky game, one game where a team doesn't play very well. Do you know what I mean? So I think cup competitions are a little bit different because there's less games and stranger things can happen. But over a 38-game season, you can't win a Premier League title with someone like Onana as your goalkeeper. I'm sorry, you just can't. That mistake he made yesterday, that's just completely inexcusable at a professional level. And when you think of last season as well, in the Champions League, we would have still been in the Champions League last season if it wasn't for Onana. He was absolutely woeful, awful. I thought he'd got a little bit better this season, but the mistakes seem to just be coming back thick and fast. And it doesn't matter, you could have Pep Guardiola, you could have Jurgen Klopp, you could have Carlo Ancelotti, you could have an attack of Vinicius, Mbappe and Erling Haaland. But whilst you've still got someone like Onana as your goalkeeper, you're never going to win anything because you're literally playing with almost 10 men. He can't distribute very well, and that was why we signed him. He doesn't seem to be able to start the attack very fast. That's the most frustrating thing with me, with Andre Onana, right? Forget about the mistakes. The amount of times we have the chance for a counter-attack or to create an attack, yeah? And Andre Onana's just stood there I don't know what he's doing, and it jars me so much because it's all good and well having a goalkeeper who can kick the ball, okay? So great, amazing. He can kick the ball. But if he takes 10 seconds every time to release the ball, then how are we supposed to actually create any counter-attacks or any transitions? But anyway, so the point I'm making here is it's not on one player. It's not on 2 players. It's a whole squad thing. I think, we need to completely rip up this team and start again. Are we going to be able to do that under INEOS? I'm not convinced, to be honest, because at the end of the day, INEOS are just the Glazers with a different name, putting themselves under the banner of Jim Ratcliffe, local lad, born 5 minutes from Old Trafford narrative, which I think is complete rubbish. And I think if it was somebody else who had bought the club, say this was, I don't know, an American businessman, right, who'd come in and bought 30% of the club alongside the Glazers, there'd be protests, there'd be riots, there'd be absolute mass outrage going on. But there's still people who hold on to this whole narrative that they force down your throat, that because Jim Ratcliffe was born 5 minutes from Old Trafford and he lived in Manchester for 2 years before then leaving Manchester for the rest of his life, that he has this divine right that he wants what's best for Manchester United. The man who had a season ticket at Chelsea, the man that tried to buy Barcelona and Chelsea before he bought Man United, the man who thought it was a good idea to keep the Glazers, the man who enabled the Glazers to stay. And people are still putting this belief into this guy just because on his birth certificate it says that he was born in Manchester. And I think that that's extremely clever because I don't want to say it I'm going to say it how it is. They've effectively played on people's heartstrings, They've played on the whole local lad narrative, which is complete rubbish. It's complete rubbish. But anyway, that's my rant on that over. Welcome to Prince, who's just joined the Daily Red Devil Members Club. Thank you very much for your support, my friend. I hope you are doing well. Really appreciate that. If you do want to join the Members Club, I'm going to drop a link into the chat to do that. Let's put a link there. Obviously, any support is, of course, appreciated. Yeah, you can join it by clicking the link there or clicking the $sign. We've got over 500 people watching the show live now, which is absolutely phenomenal. Can you do me a small favour and hit the like button, everybody? We're trying to get to 500 likes on this episode. And if you are watching for the first time today, do make sure to subscribe as well. We're getting very close to 41,000 subscribers, so go and do that right now. I've just dropped a link into the chat to do that. Right, let's move over to Rayan Cherki then, shall we? So, oh, God. Obviously, we know that Antony's leaving Manchester United, by the way, so this is the starting point of this story. So, Antony is on the brink of joining Real Betis on loan, and I put out a tweet last night, right? I'm going to read it out for you here. This is kind of my thoughts on the Antony situation. So Antony is obviously, where is my tweet? Where is it? There it is. Okay. So it said this. Manchester United's second biggest transfer in history was Antony for 95 million euros. The same player is on the brink of joining relegation fighting Real Betis in La Liga on loan, with United having to pay more than half of his weekly wages as part of the deal. United is embarrassing on and off the pitch. So there you go. That's my thoughts, and that's the latest on Antony, about to join Real Betis. Man United will have to cover 50% of his salary for him to go and play in the La Liga for a team that I think are in the bottom half of La Liga. I would just be saying to Antony, you've got no future here. Make the Saudi deal makers aware that he's available and just cut your losses and sell him. That would be the sensible thing to do. I'm sure the Saudi clubs would be interested in him. I'm sure they'd double his wages, and I'm sure that would have been an option. But for whatever reason, Man United think, oh, let's send him to Real Betis and let's hope that the loan will do him good. I mean, when has that ever worked for Manchester United? We tried it with Donny van de Beek. We sent Martial to Sevilla. That didn't work. Like, loans don't work for Manchester United. They never have. People say the Jadon Sancho one. I don't agree with that. I mean, we sent Jadon Sancho to Dortmund, right? The English media were playing it up, saying that Erik ten Hag was wrong and that Jadon Sancho was world class and he didn't know what he was missing. Jadon Sancho then comes back to Manchester United, and this world class player that everybody wants, and Erik ten Hag's done badly. Nobody buys him until transfer deadline day, and we have to loan him to Chelsea. You know, so even the best example in the media's eyes of Man United's loans working hasn't worked. And that was Jadon Sancho. They can say what they want. They can say that Erik ten Hag was right and Jadon Sancho was world class for Dortmund. I don't think he was. I've got a few friends who support Dortmund, and they said that he was pretty poor most of the time. He had a couple of good games, but most of the time he was average. But anyway, so yeah, Antony's joining Real Betis on loan. And then off the back of that, Manchester United are now actively entering the market for an attacking player. This was coming out from Fabrizio Romano last night, saying that with Antony now set to leave, Manchester United will now enter the market to try and sign somebody in the attacking area. And then obviously off the back of this, we've had a story come out this morning from Fabrizio saying that apparently Cherki has a verbal agreement with Olympique Lyonnais for January exit. He's available for £19 million. It says it's a verbal agreement with the player. There are several clubs, including those in England, who are keen on signing Cherki. Man United's name's obviously been entered into the mix, as it always does. Now, would you like to see Rayan Cherki at Manchester United? 21 years of age. I think he'd be perfect. 21 years of age, central attacking midfielder. I honestly think he'd be an absolutely incredible option for Manchester United. He's done pretty well this season. He's got 13 goals and assists in only 22 games as an attacking midfielder. So what's that? A goal or an assist every other game, roughly, something like that. Obviously, he is an attacking midfielder as well, which is what we need, but he can play as a right winger, a left winger, and he can play as a midfielder. He's played over 163 games for Olympique Lyonnais, scoring 22 goals, 33 assists. So at the moment, he's getting about a goal or an assist every 3 games. That's for Lyon. I think he's been called up to the national team as well, or is he not? No, he hasn't. But yeah, I think he'd be a really good signing. I do. I would love to see him at Manchester United. And I think for £19 million, I think that's a bit of a bargain, to be honest. Will Man United end up getting him? We'll have to wait and see, but we are linked to him. He is one of the names that Man United are apparently interested in signing. And Fabrizio, as I said, has confirmed that Man United will now enter the race to sign an attacking player, because obviously Antony's going. In relation to wages, because I can see a couple of people in the chat asking about wages. At the moment at Lyon, he's currently earning around, let's have a look. Where is it? He's currently earning around 65 million pounds he's earning, which I think is, sorry, 65 million pounds? My brain is not fully switched on today. He's earning 65 grand a week. Imagine if he was earning 65 million pounds a week. That would be mental. Anyway, 65,000 pounds per week. Yeah, I think it would be decent. I do. I think Rayan Cherki would be an absolutely phenomenal player to bring in. And I think for 19 million pounds, you can't really go wrong with it. I think he's an improvement on Anthony. I think he'll suit the system more than a player like Rashford would. And I think for that amount of money, you can't really go wrong. Now, the only issue we have is there's going to be lots of clubs interested in him. Okay, there's lots and lots of teams all linked to Rayan Cherki this morning. You've got Liverpool, you've got Tottenham, you've got PSG. For that amount of money, 19 million pounds, it's obviously going to create a bit of a bidding war and a bit of interest, which is obviously what Lyon are hoping to do. You know, they've made it public that this player is available for as little as 19 million pounds. They're now going to get interest and effectively they'll probably sell him to the highest bidder. So yeah, I would like to see him. We need to bring in somebody. But whether it'll be Rayan Cherki or not remains to be seen. We'll obviously have to wait and see. 19 million pounds is the asking price. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section on whether we should sign him. Right, let's move on from that though, and let's jump on over to Marcus Rashford, because finally it looks like the saga, if you like, is coming to an end. The news this morning is that apparently Dortmund have booked a medical for Marcus Rashford. This is being widely reported in the mainstream media this morning. Apparently the medical will take place on Thursday, so in 3 days, and it will be a loan, no obligation to buy, and Manchester United is still apparently going to have to cover at least half of his wages. I mean, again, it's an awful deal, isn't it? And Manchester United obviously hope that he goes to Dortmund and does well, but the issue I have with this deal is it's massively flawed. Because, as I said, loans don't work for Manchester United. I understand the principle. You send Rashford to Dortmund, he does well, and then it increases his value. Great. That makes sense. But the problem that Man United have is not the value of Marcus Rashford, it's the wages he's on. Because no one in world football, other than Saudi, are going to pay him the wages he's wanting. I think PSG was probably the only exception, but they've obviously just signed Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia. So they're not going to go for Rashford. You know, there's maybe people like Bayern Munich who might pay that type of money, but do you really think Bayern Munich are going to go for Rashford? He's on 300 grand a week with a 75 grand per week bonus as well included in his contract, which will be like if he starts, if he gets an assist, if he gets a goal, etc. So he can earn up to 375k a week. He's got 3.5 years left on his deal, right? So the problem that Manchester United will find themselves in is this. 3.5 years on his deal. And I always like to do maths on this channel. I like to see how much deals are really worth and to try and explain things in a little bit more of a detailed way. So the best way to do this is to work out how many weeks it is until Marcus Rashford's contract ends, right? And let me explain this whole section and then you'll see why I'm doing this. So there's 179 weeks until Marcus Rashford's contract at Manchester United expires, okay? So between now and Marcus Rashford's deal expiring, he is owed £53.7 million by Manchester United over the next 2.5 years, which is absolutely mental, isn't it? Now, say a Dortmund say we want to buy Rashford, okay? We're going to give him a 5-year contract and we're willing to pay him 150 grand a week, which is probably the upper limit of their wage structure, okay? So that sounds realistic, doesn't it? Dortmund, a Juventus, an AC Milan will turn to him and say, we'll give you 150 come to week, come to the club. We'll give you a 5-year deal. So if we work that out really quickly, so say one of these interested teams, the Dortmunds, the Barcelonas, whoever, they agree a 5-year deal with Rashford on 150 grand a week. That would be worth 39 million pounds over 5 years to Marcus Rashford and his agent and all the rest of it. Whereas the current deal with Manchester United is worth nearly 54 million pounds, which is about 15 million pounds more than what another club would pay him. And that's the problem that we find ourselves in. And even if we send him off on loan, it is still going to be the same issue, I think. Because like it was with Wan-Bissaka, like it was with other players, they're going to want to be paid off. If another team's not willing to match his wages, which they're not, they're going to want to be paid off. And when you've got a player who's not even playing because of a bad attitude problem, clearly, who's going to want to fork out a massive amount of money for him? You know, we've just seen Kavica Kvaratskhelia go to PSG for, I think it was 70 million euros, including add-ons, which is what, 60 million pounds, roughly? It's not that much, is it? And that's a player who's been doing absolutely phenomenal in the Serie A, won the Serie A title a couple of seasons ago, and he's just moved to PSG, the richest club in the world, for only 59 million pounds. And I think he's considerably younger as well. Yeah, he's 23, Rashford's 27. So based on that, right, Rashford's market value at the moment is probably, I don't know, what, 30 million maybe? 40 million at a push, pounds? So if you look at it like that, right, say a team give us 30 million for Rashford, we're probably going to have to give him about 15, 20 million to get him off the books in relation to the money that he thinks he's owed. So that's the problem we find ourselves in. And even if we, even if we do manage to, move Marcus Rashford on, I think it's going to cost Manchester United a lot of money. That's the problem. But anyway, we'll see how that progresses. Welcome to Kelly, who's just joined the Daily Red Devil Members Club. I really appreciate your support. Thank you and welcome. We've got over 800 people watching live now, which is absolutely incredible. If you could do me a little favour and make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're getting very, very close to 41,000 subscribers. So go and do that right now and be sure to like the video as well. Okay, so he's going to go to Dortmund anyway. Let's hope and pray it goes well. But the point I was making, sorry if it was a bit long-winded, but I like to try and explain things in a methodical way and to give you all of the different, ins and outs of the details of the deal. But even if he goes there and does really, really well, we're still going to find ourselves in the same situation in the summer where Marcus Rashford is here and there might be 10 clubs who want to sign him, but no one's going to match his wages, which means that Man United will have to give him the money in order to get him off the books, which might then eat into the transfer fee we get. That was the point I was making. But anyway, let's try and be positive. I still think it's mental that Man United are having to pay half of a player's wages for him to leave the club just because he won't turn up to training on time, just because he doesn't put in enough effort in training. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Imagine if that was any other job, right? Imagine if wherever you guys work, yeah? Imagine if you turned up late to your work every day. Imagine if you went to work and you didn't even bother trying. And then you have the cheek to say, I want to be transferred to another work and I want you to still pay me. Imagine. Football's just an absolutely mad sport, isn't it, in relation to HR and in relation to contracts and stuff, because these players have contracts and unless they do something terrible, like they break the law, they can effectively do what they want, really. Turn up late for training, go out drinking the night before games, and nothing really happens. They might get fined like a week's wages, but they're still going to be paid regardless. And there's not really any other industry like it, especially for like normal working class people. If you worked in a shop and you turned up late every day, or you messaged your boss saying that you were ill when you were actually out getting drunk somewhere, like they would just sack you, wouldn't they? They wouldn't give you any money. But like in football, you can just get away with it. So it's mental, but I guess that's just how it is, isn't it? Right, what have we got in the chat? Al has summarised this perfectly. Al says Rashford's value is 0. Any transfer fee we receive will need to be paid to him in order to leave. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying. Thank you for summarising it very nicely. It's frustrating, but what can we do? Jomo says that footballers' contracts should be performance-based. I would agree with that. I think football as a whole does need to change, and how the rules of football work needs to change. I know Arsenal recently did something where a lot of their contracts are performance-based, and we need to do that. The fact that we're still paying Luke Shaw 200 grand a week is absolutely sickening. I'm sorry. Sickening. The fact that Manchester United and INEOS are sacking working class people from Manchester, some of which who've worked at the club for 20, 30 years, and they're still having to pay Luke Shaw, who has barely played a game of football in 2 years, £10.5 million a season Luke Shaw's paid by Manchester United. It's sickening. Honestly, it is sickening. You hear stewards not getting their £50 Christmas bonus. You hear Manchester United stopping giving funds to charities associated with the club. Even the, just everything about it, you know? All of the things that they're cutting costs. But at the end of the day, from the players' side, they have a contract. It's a legal binding document. And Man United have to pay it whether they play or not. But I agree with you, whoever said that in the chat, that we need to start doing more of a like a performance-based system where, you know, if we win the Champions League, give them loads of money. Why not? If we win the Premier League, give them huge bonuses. If they play a game, give them, you know, like, yeah. Okay, this is a good question. I'm gonna end the show with this question, and I'm gonna get you guys to get involved. So this has come from a regular. This has come from a regular viewer, and they've said, if this form continues, do you think Ruben Amorim will survive the season? And they've just asked the question. They've not given their opinion, so it's not, you know, they're not trying to start an agenda. As I've said to you before, I'm 150% behind Ruben Amorim. I was still backing Erik ten Hag until he got sacked, to be honest, because I just don't believe that the manager's at fault anymore, and that's been proven now. We've just brought in the most exciting manager in world football, who I think before he came to Manchester United had won 11 games in a row for Lisbon. Remember, Lisbon were awful before Ruben Amorim joined them as well. Don't forget that. They hadn't won a league title in like 12 years or something. But will he survive the season? I think if it was a different football club and we carried on like this, I think no. But I think that honestly, INEOS have to stick with him because they already look stupid. What they did in the summer was absolutely illogical. To give Erik ten Hag a new contract, give him £200 million to spend, and then sack him a month later, after bringing in Ruud van Nistelrooy and René Haak as well, it made them look stupid. I said that at the time. I said maybe it's the correct decision, but INEOS looked dumb. The fact that they spent all summer doing a performance review, and then they changed their mind based on one game, the FA Cup final, and then a month later they sack him, they look stupid. Now, if they were to sack Ruben Amorim, again, that's not what I'm saying. Someone's asked the question, will he survive the season? I just think that they'd look so dumb. So dumb. Because their plan A was to sack Erik ten Hag, right? We win the FA Cup, then they go, oh, let's keep Erik ten Hag. A month later, they decide, oh, let's sack Erik ten Hag. Let's force a manager who's top of the Portuguese league, doing really well in the Champions League, to leave his club that he loves and force him to come to Manchester United now, or tell him that he's not going to get the job otherwise. You do that, you don't give him any money in January, the performances don't pick up, we've got a squad that only suits 4-3-3, and then, what, you sack him? I just think they'd look stupid, and I don't think the fans would have it. I think the fans would be absolutely furious if there was any sniff of Ruben Amorim getting sacked. I can see someone in the chat bringing in a bit of breaking news, saying that AC Milan are considering a loan move for Chelsea's Joao Felix and Manchester United duo Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund after accepting defeat in their pursuit of Marcus Rashford. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, all we're hearing at the moment is loan deals for Manchester United players. Why would Man United loan out Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund? It is completely illogical. There's 10 days left of the window. We are 6-7 points away from the relegation zone. We've won, I think, 2 games in the last 11. Why would we loan out any players? Maybe Xerxes not good enough. Maybe Højlund's not good enough. But I would still rather have them in the squad than not. So I think we can kind of disregard that, to be honest. Anthony's going to go. Rashford's going to go. Maybe Casemiro goes. But I can't see any other players getting loaned out because all we're really doing is making ourselves weaker. Whether you think Casemiro, Rashford and Anthony are good enough, we are better with Casemiro, Rashford and Anthony than we are without Casemiro, Rashford and Anthony. Because at the moment, it looks very much like we're going to let players leave, but we're not going to bring anybody in. And it's simple. If you let people go and you don't bring anybody in to replace them, you're making yourselves weaker. Whether you think Anthony's good enough or not is irrelevant. Whether you think Rashford's good enough or not is irrelevant. If you reduce players from your squad, you are making yourself weaker. That's just a fact. Because you've got less numbers. You know, if you have an injury crisis, what do you do then? But yeah, I mean, obviously the counter argument to that is that you could just bring through the youth players. But at the same time, is bringing through the youth players into this environment a good thing to do? You know, is it safe? Is it sensible? I don't think so. I really don't. But maybe that's what you think's the right thing to do. I just don't see it personally. I can see someone in the chat saying that we should just play the youth players. The thing is, though, right, we could completely destroy these youth players' career if we bring them in now. The mood is so toxic. We're at rock bottom. I think bringing in youth players is dangerous for them. You know, a lot of these youth players are like teenagers. They're like 17, 18-year-olds. I don't think it's a good idea. But, yeah. I get your point, though. You know, somebody saying they can't be any worse than what we have now. I mean, they could be, though. It's a possibility, you know? But anyway, we'll wait and see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. It's been an absolutely phenomenal show today. Really, really appreciate all of the nice messages and support I've been receiving over the last couple of days, obviously with the recent announcement that I brought to you guys. Please do me a small favor before you leave today and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 41,000 subscribers. So, yeah, please go and do that right now before you leave. And make sure to like the video as well. It doesn't cost you any money. It really helps the channel out. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next live stream. Have a great Monday, everybody. Hopefully things start to get better. I don't know. I think I've been pretty honest in my take this morning. Obviously, if you have any things you disagree with me on, let me know in the comment section. I always like to see other people's opinions. Have a great day. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. This has been Daily Red Devil, and I'll catch you all a bit later. Bye for now. Oh, dear.